Alright, this is a kind of a startup video for the one of the third parts of the series that I'm actually going to be doing. I mentioned I was going to be doing one on writing, one on just kind of general blogging kinds of things, because I cover a whole bunch of different things, and then the third one on politics, government, and that kind of stuff. Kind of having a hard time coming up with an actual name for it, so I'm kind of playing around with different things because it's kind of hard to really figure out what to call something like that. Current events, the current events report, or something like that. So I'm kind of doing the first one, just kind of get an idea of kind of where to get my feet wet with it. The problem with it right now is it's really hard to find even a topic to talk about, because usually what I wanted to do is just kind of focus on a specific topic and then kind of spend each one of those moments doing that. I did one of the first writing ones, and it ended up being about 20 something minutes. I want to kind of avoid that because people generally don't have time to watch something for 25 minutes. Unless you're doing some kind of ASMR video or something like that, which I don't actually do those. I watch them, but I don't do them. So the kind of thing that I want to do probably is a little safer in the, I don't know, 8 to 10 minute range, and we'll kind of see how that actually goes. So couple of things I was just kind of thinking about, because I mean, my first idea, I was going to do my first episode on the whole Kavanaugh nomination for the Supreme Court, and then I thought to myself, unless something happens that's just really bizarre, it's kind of a foregone conclusion he's getting the position, and there's not a whole lot people can do about it. I mean, there's a lot of fighting against it and a lot of grassroots types of approaches to stop it, and that's all great, fine and dandy and all that, but the problem of it is the people who want to stop it just don't have the votes. They don't have the support in Congress, or the Senate specifically, to stop it. There are enough senators to make it happen, and it's looking very much like that's going to happen. Unless you get a Murkowski, I can never say her name right. Unless you get a senator that turns around and says, I don't want this, and we don't have a Senator McCain there anymore, it's a foregone conclusion. He's going to be confirmed for the Supreme Court. A couple other kind of stories that are going around right now, and I thought I'd kind of brush up on some of them. Well, the first one, it's hard to get away from it because today, which happens to be Friday, the only story in the news right now, especially in the United States, is the Hurricane Florence. So, I mean, every other story has something to do with it. Even the political stories have something to do with it. We're dealing with President Trump, how his response to Puerto Rico is actually affecting whatever kind of response that he's going to have for Hurricane Florence. So you really can't get around that one. So a couple other stories that are kind of going on right now, so I'll try to touch on some of those, because I think they do need a little bit of attention. We're just not paying that much to them. Paul Manafort was actually convicted just a little while ago, but now he's actually taken a plea, and it looks like he's come clean and he's made an agreement with the government. The way the legal system works is a lot of people think, oh, now that's like the end for Trump. It's not really, because from legal scholars that I've been actually hearing from, it sounds a lot like the agreement that he had didn't have specific writing in it to indicate that the amount of information he was going to be giving was going to be groundbreaking, or pretty much anything that they haven't already figured out already. So it may be small things, or it may lead to something else, but at this time it doesn't look like it's going to be all that significant. At least that's in my opinion, and what's that matter, right? Okay, Couple other things. Couple other issues kind of going on. I'm in Texas right now. Now, that may not be significant to a lot of other people who are watching this, but in Texas right now, we have a pretty big congressional fight that's going on right now for senator between Ted Cruz, who's actually Rafael Cruz, who for some reason wants to appeal to the Hispanic community but doesn't want to use an Hispanic name in his name. And so he has chosen Ted Cruz. I've never really understood that. I guess he's trying to appeal to the non-Hispanic side of the house. I doesn't make any sense to me at all. His competition's Beto O'Rourke. I never really got the pronunciation of that correctly. It's going to be an interesting race. If you'd have asked me a couple of months ago, I'd have said there's no reason Cruz isn't going to win this race, because Beto O'Rourke was nowhere to be seen. I live in Corpus Christi, and so if I hadn't seen him, and he barely touched San Antonio, which is the closest biggest city to us, kind of like, you know, Houston would be to any place up north or west, wherever Houston is. Anyway, and so I hadn't seen him, hadn't heard anything from him, didn't kind of know what was going on with him. I actually put out an appeal to his campaign, both through his Facebook presence and Twitter, just trying to get some information, or at least put me in contact with somebody in their organization, and basically just complete silence, which got me starting to think that I don't think he really cares. And I think what he thought was, oh, here's some kind of Republican guy that's trying to contact me. I got no use for him. If you know anything about me, you know that's kind of like not the right designation for me. But that's what it is. And so, haven't heard anything from him. He's come around a couple of times and basically has done the I'm here to sign autographs kind of thing, except I don't actually sign autographs, so I'm here just to be looked at for a moment, to get back into a vehicle and then leave. That's been kind of the problem with this whole campaign, with his whole campaign. And he needs to win against a guy that, for all intents and purposes, should not win at all. And the only reason Ted Cruz has any chance in Texas is he's a Republican, and he can put the R after his name. He's not a great Republican. He's basically just kind of a signatory for other people in charge, and he does what he's told. He doesn't put anything new out there. No new ideas. We haven't heard anything new from him in so long, other than I want to do what somebody else has told me to do. And that's our guy. And he's running against a guy who's trying to make all sorts of changes but can't seem to get his message out there, because I honestly don't think he's trying hard enough. I think he's just kind of playing kind of like the Hillary Clinton approach to winning the last election, which is, I think I got this all in the bag, so I'm going to stay in the areas where I know I need my higher votes, and the other ones I'm just going to kind of let whatever happens, because I could never get them in the first place. That's my impression. I could be wrong. Not an expert on this. It's not actually true, but that's beside the point. Okay, a couple other issues. Talked about Kavanaugh. Midterms. Midterms are coming around the corner, and let's just put it this way. It's probably the most important election that nobody who's not into politics is actually going to participate in. And that's really sad. And if you think about it, the people who really, really need to participate, and the people who need to be, totally caused to actually be interested in kind of what's going on, are young people. they need to change a lot of things. You've got a whole bunch of kids out from Florida that are running around the country trying to make a difference about guns and all sorts of other things. It's like young people just aren't responding to anything other than being outraged and talking about how they need to do something, but then not actually doing something when the time comes around. It's been conjectured, and I think this was by, who was this by? This was by Vox, just very recently, that said only 28% of young people are actually intending to vote. Now, if you think about it, 78% of just everybody that's actually registered to vote is planning to vote, which means you've got a lot of young people who need to go against very entrenched adults. By entrenched, I mean people who kind of vote the same way all the time. And if people keep voting the same way all the time, you're not going to get any change whatsoever. Something to think about. But people who need to think about it don't. I mean, I teach at a community college, and I've got students that I know are not going to vote. I know some are registered to vote, some are saying they're going to register to vote, and they won't. And they won't vote. Now, I don't teach political science anymore. I teach actually communication. So the only time I ever deal with politics is when we're talking about speeches and stuff like that. But, political speeches. But the fact of the matter is, if people don't care, nothing's going to change. And so I think the idea is I can't make a difference, kind of like, poor people's movements, from ages ago, where if we don't get anything, we can't do anything, then we can't influence anything, so I'm just going to step out and kind of get my own little thing here and hope things work out. That never works, but just letting you know. So that's kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about for today. I just want to kind of catch up on what's going on. It's really hard to deal with any issue right now because the storm is coming through, and it's really, really bad. I mean, we've got the whole Puerto Rico backlash of what's going on. 3,000 people were killed, and our president is basically saying that it's not true, which is kind of how a lot of stories are going these days. So until he's out of office, we're going to have a whole lot of this is happening, this is not happening, we don't know what's going on, because we're getting so many bad stories out of Washington these days. Hopefully things get better. Hopefully the storm doesn't affect too many people. It's already starting to affect people. Like I've seen some of the simulations of some of the water damage is already being done. So this isn't like future damage, but it's happening already. Storms are pretty bad out here right now, although we're not as affected or even close to what they were, although we were the year before. But like I said, hopefully everything is okay, and hopefully all the people that get out of there. And there's a lot of people who are sticking around. Some people can't leave, and that's a problem. I think if anything comes out of these, I really wish people would kind of get together and try to figure out what to do about the people who are unable to leave. Because right now we keep having government officials telling people you need to evacuate, and there's large swaths of the population that can't leave. Either they're invalid, or they just can't afford it, or they can leave but they've got nowhere else to go. And when you abandon an entire city, all of your friends are most likely in that city, so you don't have somebody to stay with, and unless you've got family somewhere way down the line, or way out of town and state, you're kind of stuck and you don't really have anywhere to go. You can stay in a hotel for a couple of days, but these things don't last a couple of days. If it goes through an entire area and wipes out an area, you're not coming back for quite a long time. And FEMA and all those haven't been all that helpful to people that really need it. Oh, they're helpful to people who got it, but that's a whole nother story. All right, so that's all I got for today. I don't really want to go too far on this. It was just kind of introduction to politics and all that. My goal in the future is to deal with specific topics and just stay on those. and hopefully it'll be interesting, and we'll talk more about that later. Thank you.